Find the sine inverse of the sine of 3 pi over 4. All right, so when we investigate or look at this problem, we see a inverse function and its regular function, right? So we have a composite of an inverse with its function, right? And there's a property that we should know, right? We know that f inverse of f of x, well, that should just equal x. Of course, it goes both ways, so f of f inverse of x also should just equal x. So you're looking at this guy and saying, okay, it's a composite function between the function and its inverse. So, okay, my answer should be 3 pi over 4. But you got to be careful with trig functions, right? Because with trig functions, and especially with the inverse, we restrict the domain and the range. Okay, so what do we mean by that? Okay, well, for sine, now this is only for sine, right? There's also, we restrict sine, cosine, and tangent, right? So this is for sine, right? So if the sine inverse of y is equal to x, right? I'm just using x and y in this case. X is the angle, right? We know that y should be between -1 and 1. It doesn't really matter in this problem, but what about the angle, right? We know that for sine inverse, right, we only deal with sine inverse between -pi/2 and pi/2, which means, right, x is in quadrant 1 if y is a positive value, and x is in quadrant 4 if y is a negative value, but in quadrant 4, we give the answer as a negative angle. Because it has to be between -pi/2 and pi/2. So what do we mean by that? Well, let's take a look here. Okay, so once again, we can't just say, oh, my answer is 3 pi over 4 here, right? This is actually a composite function. So we actually want to do this in steps. We actually want to do the inner function first, right? What is the inner function? It's the sine of 3 pi over 4. We know this one, right? Just using a unit circle. I know that the sine of 3 pi over 4 is radical 2 over 2. So then that's basically what this question is asking, right? The sine of 3 pi over 4 is rad 2 over 2. So what is the sine inverse of rad 2 over 2? Okay. And we know that there are two places, right? We know that sine of pi over 4 is equal to rad 2 over 2. And also the sine of 3 pi over 4 is equal to rad 2 over 2. So does that mean we give two answers here? And we can't, because then it won't be a function. Okay, so we can only give one of these answers. But, well, how do you know which one? The key is how we restrict the domain. Remember, for sine inverse, we only deal with sine inverse in quadrants 1 and quadrants 4, right? Well, wait a minute. 3 pi over 4, that's in quadrant 2, so I don't want to use that. So this is in quadrant 1. Okay, so my answer here is pi over 4.